Big Four entry-level hiring crashed over 40% in 18 months. ChatGPT hit 92% of Fortune 500 companies in the same window. This is the fastest workforce displacement ever recorded. And Gen Z is the crash test dummy. Everyone's blaming them for being lazy. The data says they're the first generation in modern history mathematically locked out of the white-collar ladder. Let me show you. Start with the entry rung. Youth unemployment, ages 15 to 24, is the single cleanest signal for whether the economy is letting new workers in. And across every advanced economy, that signal is flashing red. Look at the US, UK, France, Korea, Canada. From 2005 to 2019, youth unemployment trended down as economies recovered from the financial crisis. Then COVID spiked it. Fine, expected. But here's what's not normal. After 2022, when AI capex went vertical, youth unemployment in the US stopped falling and started climbing again. France is sitting near 17%. Korea, the country that built its economy on entry-level office work, is watching its youth rate diverge from its adult rate for the first time in a decade. This isn't a vibe. This is the entry rung of the labor market being sawed off in real time. And it's happening in every country that adopted enterprise AI fastest. Here's the counter-argument everyone throws at me. It's just a soft labor market. Everyone's struggling. Wrong. Watch what happens when I overlay total unemployment against youth unemployment. Total unemployment in the US is near historic lows, 3.6%. The UK, Germany, Japan, all sitting at multi-decade low aggregate unemployment. But youth unemployment? Decoupling. Hard. The gap between youth and total unemployment in the US has widened to over 4 percentage points in 2023, the widest non-recession gap on record. In Germany, adult unemployment is 3%. Youth is more than double that. If this were a recession, both lines move together. They aren't. The adult labor market is fine. The entry-level labor market is being structurally deleted. That's not a cycle. That's a regime change. Now the scariest chart. NEET. Not in employment, education, or training. These are young people who've left the system entirely. They're not applying. They're not in school. They're gone. In Italy, the NEET rate sits near 19%. The UK just hit a decade high. The US number quietly climbed back above 13% after years of decline. When entry-level jobs disappear, you don't just see unemployment rise, you see exit. Kids stop trying. They move home. They give up on the white-collar pipeline because the pipeline gave up on them first. This is what economists used to call discouraged worker effect. We're now watching it metastasize across an entire generation. Once you're NEET for more than 12 months, your lifetime earnings drop by an estimated 20%. Multiply that across millions of Gen Z workers, and you get a permanent dent in GDP. So where did the jobs go? Follow the capex. R&D spending as a share of GDP just hit all-time highs in Korea, the US, Germany, and Japan. Korea is now spending nearly 5% of its entire GDP on R&D, the highest of any major economy in history. The US crossed 3.5%. And the bulk of that new spending? AI infrastructure. Microsoft alone committed $80 billion to AI capex in 2024. Google, Meta, Amazon, another $200 billion combined. That money isn't being spent on hiring 22-year-olds to write memos. It's being spent on GPUs that write the memos for them. Every percentage point of R&D to GDP that goes up correlates with a measurable drop in entry-level knowledge work hiring. The capital is flowing. It's just flowing into silicon, not salaries. Here's the final tell. If this were a normal downturn, GDP per capita would be falling alongside youth employment. It isn't. GDP per capita growth is positive across nearly every advanced economy. The US economy grew 2.5% per person in 2023. Productivity per worker is at all-time highs. Corporate profits, record. The economy is producing more output with fewer young workers. That's the definition of a productivity decoupling. The pie is growing. Gen Z just isn't getting a slice. For 70 years, every productivity gain eventually translated into more hiring at the bottom. That link broke in 2023. AI is the first technology in history that scales output without requiring entry-level humans to operate it. The ladder didn't get harder to climb. The bottom rungs were removed. So let's settle this. Gen Z isn't lazy. They aren't entitled. They aren't soft. They are the first generation in modern labor history to face a structural deletion of the entry-level rung. The data is unambiguous. Adult employment is fine, GDP is growing, productivity is up, R&D capex is at record highs, and youth unemployment, youth NEET rates, and entry-level hiring are all moving the wrong way at the same time. That isn't a recession, that's a regime change. AI didn't just automate tasks, it automated the on-ramp to a career. And until policymakers stop pretending this is cyclical, the gap will widen, and a generation will pay for a transition no one warned them about. If you want the charts, the headlines won't show you, and the data the pundits ignore, subscribe. We follow the numbers wherever they lead. Next week, the U.S. cities where Gen Z is moving back home, mapped against AI adoption rates. You won't want to miss it.